I've been struggling to find areas where I can do some outdoor shooting. And I'm not just talking about your local outdoor sit-down range where you can only shoot one round every 10 seconds. I'm talking about getting into the wilderness to practice some drills or do some long-distance shooting. I see a ton of on social media, but how can I get this around me? If any of this sounds familiar to you, then stick around because I'm going to show you how I find public land to legally shoot on. Skipping your local range and finding places to shoot out in the wilderness can take a bit of effort, but it can be also very rewarding as well. Maybe you just don't feel safe at your local range because there are a bunch of new shooters, which typically local ranges do cater towards, and so you want to go out in the wilderness. Maybe your local ranges also just don't cater to the type of practicing you want to do. Maybe that's drawing from your holster, or if you want to shoot way far out to 5, 6, 800 or 1,000 yards. Or even if it does, maybe you just want to be more out in nature with your friends and family. These are all reasons why you'd want to go shoot out in the wilderness. But I'll level set with you guys and let you know that finding places where you can do this legally, it can be a little bit tedious and it can be a bit of a trial and error process. It is by no means perfect. Unfortunately, I have had a handful of times where I did all my research online, I put in the work, but when I actually go out there and make the range trip, I can't actually shoot there. Signs closed, roads are blocked, or just maybe things on the internet that I looked at were out of date, and now I can't actually shoot here, and so the range day is lost. But fortunately, there are things you can do to minimize the chances of having spoiled or wasted range days, and so let me share those with you right now. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is understand in your state, where can you not and where can you shoot? And the best way to do this is just to look this up online. You can type in your state, shoot, no shoot areas, or your state, target shooting locations. And while you may get a handful of local ranges, you want to ignore those for the sake of what you're trying to do, and try to find a state-owned website which shows your state, divided up into areas, and who owns which of those sections of land. Take the time to look at the map, look at the key to see the color code, and understand where you are allowed to shoot and where you cannot. This is great because you already off the bat know where you're not allowed to shoot, so you don't need to put in any more time and effort to invest into understanding if you should go out there. That work is already done for you just by looking at the map. What's good too is that now you know all the areas around you that are not strictly off limits, so we can add that to our list of potential places to shoot. Take the time to really understand this map, familiarize yourself with who owns which areas of land, because this is going to tell us who do we need to talk to understand if we can shoot here in the first place. So at this stage, we have a list of places we can't shoot, so we're going to discard those. And we're going to take the ones that are around us and just kind of look and see what the different rules are for shooting around here. Here we have one of the agency's different target shooting rules. And overall, just in my state, the experience tends to be you can shoot on any state-owned or public lands as long as you follow certain rules. And these rules tend to be no shooting within a certain distance from roads or cities, don't shoot over roads, only use certain types of ammunition, and maybe depending on the season, there are going to be burn bans, so you can only shoot at certain types of day. Things like that, as well as your backstop and other basic things. And if all else fails and you can't actually find this online, at least just call the area. Call the local police station or the local park ranger and just ask them what the rules are, and that way you should be good to go. So up to this stage, we understand where we can't shoot. We've identified places that are within a reasonable commute, which is up to you to decide what that is. And we understand the shooting rules in those places that we're considering to look at. So now that we understand these things, we don't need to go and drive just yet. What we're going to do is we're going to look at this online first, and the best way that I found to scout these places online is by using Google Earth. Usually what I'll do is the places that I've just familiarized myself with the shooting rules, I'll just pick a handful of each of those places and just kind of look through in the 2D map first to see what looks a little more secluded, what's away from all the cities and all the buildings. From there, what I'll do is I'll actually hop into the 3D view, and it just gives you a better sense for the kind of place you'll be shooting at. The 3D view is also super helpful if you want to understand if you're going to be shooting on inclines or declines, or if you're shooting up in the mountains. And just of course, by seeing things in 3D, they're just a little bit easier to process in your head than if you only had a 2D image. One thing that's also really helpful is that depending on the kind of shooting you want to do, you'll need certain distances, from where you're standing. And so you can use the distance or the ruler function here to measure distances between 2 points. So now, depending on how far away or how much area you have to work with, you know that this shooting location, it's either going to be a short distance one, or maybe it'll be a longer distance one, depending on what you want to do. You don't need to take the risk to drive out there only to find that you don't have enough room. You can measure them online first to kind of help you out there. So usually this process takes me about a couple hours, and so as I'm doing this, there are a handful of considerations that I take in mind when I have all these tools on Google Earth at my disposal. So when you're using the 3D view and you can see what's around you, you need to be considerate of what your backstop is. So if you're shooting out in a national forest, that means that you're probably going to have a lot of trees around you, of course, but trees don't make good backstops. Even if you have a really secluded area around you, you need to know where you place your target so your bullets hit the right things behind it. Also, you'll need to be able to understand what direction you actually place your targets in. If you're still way up in the mountains, but you're shooting at a decline and there's a city not too far away, you can't do that because it's dangerous to other people. So you'll need to keep in mind, where do you actually position your targets? It's not enough just to have a lot of land. You need to understand how you orient everything when you actually go out there and practice. And this may be more specific to my state, but if you're shooting in national forests and to an extent up in the mountains, you may think that shooting in those places is nice and secluded, and that's great. But what I found is that if you've identified the spot, chances are a bunch of other shooters have as well. So you probably will not be the only one out there. And I'm not just talking about shooters, but also normal everyday people who just go out and hike as well. They also have Google Earth at their disposal. They've probably put in their research as well. So you may not be the only one who's actually out there. You'll also need to make sure that the roads are actually good and that you can actually get here in the first place. So again, for my example of in the mountains, it sounds really nice, but you need to make sure those roads are well maintained enough, because chances are they're probably not as good as your local roads and highways. So this also has implications for what kind of car you take and in which seasons, at what time of the year can you actually make it out here. Probably something that's out in the mountains, you may not be able to go there in the winter. And in the summer, there may be restricted hours due to burn bans where you can maybe only go in the really early hours of the day. So backstops, direction in which you shoot, how large the shooting area is it easy to get to, how many people will be around you potentially, is it legal to shoot there? It's a lot of factors, but the good thing is they're pretty basic things to take in mind. There are things that generally align anyway with the fundamentals of shooting. So you should be okay there, but ask yourself these questions as you go about kind of vetting these spots. Use the tools at your disposal to kind of pair with that critical thinking, and hopefully that'll give you a better understanding if this is a potential place you should check out. Another very important thing to consider too, just in general, is your risk tolerance going out to these more secluded areas. We may not always like our local indoor-outdoor ranges that, your traditional ones, because those have some risks, but shooting out in these more kind of secluded places, they do as well. Keep that in mind. So for example, I go out and shoot alone basically like all of the time. This means that if I run into dangerous animals, dangerous people, there's no cell service, or if my car breaks down, that is all on me to solve completely on my own. No one's coming to help me. So my risk tolerance naturally is going to be a little lower, and I'll be a little more conservative with these kinds of places. Now, if you have a really great car, you have the ability to get excellent cell service wherever you go with a bunch of people and a bunch of guns, your risk tolerance will probably be much higher than mine. Finally, make sure to also pick up your trash if you go to these spots. Unfortunately, that as more people find these places and they go, people tend to leave their trash, as they shoot. And that's not good for the environment, it's not good for the state, and also as people in the 2A community, we want to make sure we're always putting our best foot forward and representing ourselves properly. So do the right thing, bring a trash bag, pick up as much as you reasonably can, and just try to keep the place as clean as when you left it. So I hope you found this video to be helpful. As long as you put in the time and effort and you have some patience and you kind of just manage your expectations, you should be able to find a good place to shoot. Just kind of keep those things in mind. It's not a perfect process, but it has worked for me. And I actually do need to do some new location scouting because the place I was going to previously, long story short, isn't really an option anymore. So maybe next time you see me shooting, I will be in a different location. But let me know if you have any questions or any suggestions of your own. I'll catch you guys in the next video.